We're studying the Gospel of Luke together, and so we'll be back there together today, so I want to invite you to please turn with me in your Bible to the Gospel of Luke, and we are in chapter 7 today. Luke chapter 7. Our focus for today will be verses 1 through 10. And before we read that text together, I do want to just help us all recall where exactly we're at, and a map helps, but then also just a breakdown of Jesus' ministry. So just recall, we have the birth accounts initially there in Luke, and we have anticipation of birth. So we have John the Baptist, we have Jesus. Do we remember this? We remember the birth accounts. You have to go back a little ways, but we can recall that, right? And then we had the temptation of Jesus. Do you remember that in the wilderness? And then eventually Jesus found himself going up north to that region right there of Galilee. Now, all the other things take place more so in Jerusalem in the south, but we're traveling north and we're in Galilee for now. And Jesus spent about 18 months, about a year and a half, in his ministry in Galilee specifically. And so as we're looking at chapter 7 together, that's where we are. That's where we need to just recall that's where all of these things are taking place. And so our text for today is taking place during that year and a half ministry of Jesus in Galilee. And what was he doing in Galilee? Well, we know a couple of things. One, we know that his home base for ministry was in Capernaum, right? Which you can see there on the map there at the north side of the Sea of Galilee. And what we also know is basically what would characterize his entire ministry during this period of time. What was Jesus doing, right? We know where he was, but what was he doing? Well, he was doing several things. He was teaching in their synagogues, right? He was casting out demons. He was healing those who were sick and afflicted. And he was preaching, such as the Sermon on the Plain, right? Or the Sermon on the Mount, however you want to understand that, okay? So Jesus was also doing open-air preaching to his followers. So if we simply say Jesus was teaching in the synagogues and that was his only teaching, we would be mistaken, right? Jesus was also preaching to the crowds, and he was finding opportunities to teach those who were following him. So we will see, and just keep your eye out for it today, when Jesus interacts with this centurion there in Capernaum, just notice the time when he turns to his many followers and instructs them. So we have to understand that many people were following Jesus, wanting to learn from him, not just in those moments like where he's teaching on the Sermon on the Plain, right, or in the synagogue, but also they're just following him around, waiting to see what the Lord Jesus will do. What will he do next? Will he heal someone next? Will he cast out a demon? Will he have another teaching opportunity, right? I don't want to miss anything. You have these people who are just following him around, excited for all that Jesus will do, okay? So just notice that in our text for today. Now, this is coming directly off of the Sermon on the Plain, right? That is, Luke chapter 7 is coming off of Luke chapter 6. In Luke chapter 6, we looked at that sermon, and you might summarize the content of that sermon in this way. Maybe three different movements. Number one, you had blessings and woes. You remember that? Number two, you had the contrast between love and judgment, right? And then you also had fruit and obedience. You have these three, these are very vague realities, okay? But this will help us to summarize and recall the content of that sermon. Blessings and woes, love and judgment, fruit and obedience. And then immediately, after he finished saying those things, well, that's exactly where we start here in Luke chapter 7, right? Luke chapter 7, beginning in verse 1. Let's read the text. After he finished all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now, a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." And we're actually going to stop our reading right there for the moment. Okay? We're going to take our text in 3 different movements today. Number 1, verses 1 through 5. And here's what we see. Here's what I want us to see. This is an appraisal from the people, an appraisal. Here's how I'm defining appraisal for the day, because I'm going to use it several times. I want to make sure that your definition and my definition of that word appraisal is the same. Okay? An appraisal. An appraisal is an opinion on the nature, character, or quality of something or someone. I'm going to say that again. An appraisal is an opinion on the nature, character, or quality of something or someone. Can we all agree on that definition for today of appraisal, right? When you appraise a house, is that not what it is? And we do know that it is subjective, right? It is not objective, believe it or not, when you have a house appraised. That's someone's opinion of its value, right? Here, in these few verses here as we begin, the people are offering an appraisal of the centurion. Okay, that's what we see. That's what I want us to see. Who is he? What is his value? That is, this centurion in Capernaum. All right, let's talk about a centurion for a moment, because to first century or second century, even third century readers of this text, you say a centurion, and they think, I know exactly who that is. I know exactly what kind of person this is. I know their job. I know their status. I know their influence. I know who they are and what they do and what power they hold. For us, there's a bit of a distance with that, isn't there? I say a centurion, well, maybe because you've done some Bible background research, or maybe you're just familiar with the Roman period, right? And you say a centurion, well, that's pretty obvious to me, because some of it even is worked into the name itself. A centurion, just like a century, right, has something to do with 100, right? A centurion is a soldier in the Roman army who has control or command of 100 soldiers. Okay? 100 soldiers. And the fact that he's in Capernaum is very interesting, because Capernaum is in Galilee, and Galilee is kind of a client state of Rome. It's not necessarily directly under Roman rule, but it is indirectly under Roman rule. Okay, so what you find here is that there's a Roman centurion living in Capernaum for some reason. Now, does that mean there was an outpost of Roman soldiers in Capernaum? And I think that's very likely the case, right? Is that he's actually on the job. He's living in Capernaum because he's on the job working as a centurion, because there's Roman rule over this area. Okay, so if things don't go as Caesar would have them, or according to Roman law, they're going to make sure and enforce that law, right? That does make sense to us, right? Why he's there. Okay, so you have this centurion, and this is giving us insight to military presence here in Capernaum and in Galilee. But here's the situation with him. He has a servant. This servant was highly valued by him, and he was honored by him, obviously very precious to him, right? Is the idea, is the sense of it. He has a servant who's precious to him. Now, that may or may not be confusing, because you're saying he has a servant, a slave, okay? And this slave was very precious to him. Precious in what way? Well, precious as an animal is precious to a farmer. Precious in the same way that a tool is to someone who does construction, right? It's very expensive. It's valuable. Is that what he means here? It seems to me, right, from context that we're given here, what he's saying, because this was common also, common practice, common belief, the common way the society worked is that there was a complicated dynamic between master and slave at this time in history. So to be thinking about, Southern slavery, antebellum slavery, these types of things, it's a different situation. The dynamics are very different. So don't just transport yourself back and think that, okay? But we have to transport ourselves back 2,000 years ago to that kind of relationship. And many times, masters did treat their servants as if they were simply animals or tools, unfortunately, okay? Almost stripping away their humanity. Now that's a reality, yes, okay? But there's another reality that was also present at this time, is that masters highly valued their servants, and they actually treated them as family members. They educated them, they cared for them, they were integrated into the life of their home. and they were very valuable to them. And it seems to me, based on what we know of this particular man, that this is the angle that he's approaching this with. He's saying, I have a servant who is part of my household, and I care for him, and he's very valuable to me. And I hate that he's sick, and I want his life, I want his health, not simply as a tool for me, because I'll lose a tool or an animal that works for me. No, it just seems to be more than that he actually has care for this person. Do you see it as well in this text? So he's sick, he's near to the point of death, and he heard about Jesus, and he sent to him elders of the Jews. He heard about Jesus and sent to him elders of the Jews. So the dynamics here are kind of stacking up together. We're getting a better picture of the story, all right? It's very interesting. It doesn't say that that the centurion was well acquainted with Jesus because Jesus lived in Capernaum as well. It doesn't say that he knew Jesus. It doesn't say that he saw Jesus working miracles, doing healings. He didn't say that he came across Jesus and he heard his teaching. No, what it says is he heard of Jesus, right? Fame of Jesus was spreading. As I said before, like a wildfire spreads, right? It starts out small, but then once it gains momentum, it catches on. Everybody was hearing about this man, Jesus, and all that he had done. And what are the things that they're hearing about him? They're hearing that he's a great teacher. They're hearing that he cast out demons. And they're hearing that he heals the sick miraculously. And so when this centurion who lives in Capernaum hears that there's a miracle worker among them, and he knows that he's Jewish, who does he send then to contact this Jewish miracle worker? The elders of the Jews. Now, how does this man have contact with the elders of the Jews, and also who are these elders of the Jews? Good questions. The elders of the Jews, we have to remember that we're not in Jerusalem. We're not in the temple setting, okay? So don't think Sanhedrin, Pharisees, Sadducees, that whole ultra-high religious context that you see playing out in Jerusalem specifically. But we do have local synagogues, okay? And synagogues were primarily built by donations or taxes of the Jewish people, things like that, okay? And in a synagogue, an actual structure that's built, it wasn't too big, actually not much bigger than the full size of the building that we're in right now, right? Not just the room we're in, but the full size of the building we're in. Think something like that, okay? And these structures were built, and they had an operational structure where the Jewish men of high influence, would become elders among them, that they were well respected, that they were wise, that they knew the scriptures, and that they had the character to be in this high regarded place as elders, okay? Kind of like, but also not like church elders, okay? As we think of them today. Kind of, but not really, all right? They were leaders, but they were more than religious leaders. They were also social leaders. And also, the synagogue not only held religious significance, but it also held social significance. So when something was happening in the town, where was all the hustle and bustle happening at? Well, probably the synagogue. It's the center of not only religious life, but also social life for the people. Can you get in that frame of mind? Okay, so when there is this man who was a Jewish miracle worker, and this centurion who was not Jewish, by the way. Not Jewish. He was a Gentile. He was Roman. He was not Jewish. I want to emphasize that. That's actually very significant to the whole story. The man is not Jewish, but he hears of a Jew that he wants contact with. As a Gentile, think about the Jew-Gentile dynamic, okay? A Jew who is a miracle worker is even a notch above your average Jew, right? So he, though, wants contact with this guy. So who does he then contact? Well, the elders of the Jews. If anybody's going to have contact with this guy, it's probably going to be those who are most prominent in the Jewish community. Wouldn't we all agree with that? So that's who he contacts. He contacts the elders of the Jews, and he says, I want Jesus to come and heal my servant. Can you make that happen? And the elders of the Jews say, we'll do whatever we need to do to make that happen for you. Why? Why did they hear his request? Why did they want anything to do with this guy? Because the guy has influence. The guy has money. The guy has power. And for a couple other reasons, they find him worthy. That word is in our text. Do you see it? It says in verses 4 and 5. Here's what they said. These elders of the Jews came to Jesus and they pleaded with him earnestly, and they said, "He is worthy to have you do this for him. He loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue. If there is anybody worthy, it's this guy." For what reason? 2 reasons. Did you see him? Number 1, because he loves our nation. He is a Gentile who has sympathies toward the Jews. He is not a Jew himself. He is not ethnically Jewish. He's not even a proselyte. He's not officially a convert to Judaism. The Jewish nation is something separate from him, right? But he has sympathies toward it. He loves the Jewish nation. Some questions. My questions for you. That's pretty straightforward. Does love for the Jewish nation make a person worthy of God's favor? Or let's kind of scale back from that a second and ask a bigger question. Does love for God's covenant people make a person worthy of God's favor? Or let's come back a little more and add some New Testament insight to this and some application for us today. Does love for the church make a person worthy of God's favor? And maybe for the Jews, this is the only connection that, and maybe you personally might have some different insight on this as to why this would have been on the mind of the elders of the Jews. Think about this. The blessing of Abraham. Genesis 12:3. "I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So what is that? If you give blessing to Israel, what will you receive in return? Blessing. So says the blessing of Abraham. Seemingly. Right? Galatians 3:14 will give us a different picture. So that's a plug for coming on Wednesday nights. Okay? We're working through that together. Or Genesis 27:29. "Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. May your mother's son bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you. Blessed be everyone who blesses you." That is the blessing of Abraham going from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. That was written to Jacob. So the blessing of Abraham is passed down the line to Jacob, whose name would be Israel. That blessing of Jacob's line, of Abraham's line, means you get a blessing in return. So, is it possible that these elders of the Jews said this, based on that reality? If you bless the Jews, which seemingly this centurion was blessing the Jews, that he should be blessed in return for his blessing of the Jews. Hey, that makes sense. Can we all at least agree how they maybe got there? Right? Okay, all right. So the first reason they give of why this man is worthy of Jesus' favor is that he loves the Jewish nation. Second point they give is this. He is the one who built us our synagogue. Oh, if the first wasn't good enough, the second must be, because that's their entire case. Right? He loves the Jewish nation, and he built us our synagogue. Now, what's really interesting is that you might think, okay, Centurion, he must be loaded financially, right? He must be really wealthy. And for him to build a synagogue building, not much bigger than this building, you say, okay, well, that was probably a drop in the bucket for him. The reality being that a building of that size, according to archaeology, okay, these are generic concepts, take them for what they're worth. But generally, what you can determine is that a synagogue building of average size would cost about 1,000 denarii, which was, by record, the exact wage of a centurion in the first century. So the cost of a synagogue building, on average, was also the average yearly pay of a centurion. And he's the one that financially he gave money to build this synagogue. A year's wage. Let's take an average salary. I don't know what it is. I'm going to throw a number out of, if you go to Google, look it up, it's somewhere $65,000 a year. Let's just take $60,000 a year. And we say, okay, that's how much it would cost to build that building. Would that be a stretch for you? I mean, if it's not a stretch for you, that you got things going for you. I mean, good for you financially. It'd be a stretch for me. It'd be nearly, an impossibility. Honestly, right? So we can't think that the man's giving money for this would have been nothing for him, right? This is a lot of money. He gave a lot of money. He sacrificed his finances to build this building for the Jews. So does he seemingly, genuinely have an affection for the Jewish nation? Not only does he say it, evidently, but he shows it. Everybody see it? But these are the reasons that were given to Jesus by the elders of the Jews that Jesus needed to hear his request and just go heal his son. He's worthy of it. Couple of questions. Does significant financial contribution to a Jewish building project make a person worthy of God's favor? Does significant financial contribution to God's covenant people make a person worthy of God's favor? Does significant financial contribution to a local church make a person worthy of God's favor? So were they wrong? We're saying no, at least many of us are, even kind of under our breath, because you didn't know if that was rhetorical or not. And you're saying, I don't think so, because that doesn't seem to mesh with what we know to be true of how God works. Yes? But they came and they pleaded with him earnestly. He is worthy to have you do this for him. So we're left wondering, how's Jesus going to respond? Let's see. Because that's the appraisal of the people of this centurion. Next, verses 6 through 8. Let's look at it. An appraisal from the centurion himself. Does he appraise himself the same way as the people? Let's see. Surprisingly, verse 6 starts out this way. And Jesus went with them. What does that mean for us? That he agreed to go. Does it mean necessarily that he was like, man, that's good argumentation? You're right. Well, I didn't know that. He is worthy based on what you just said. And so Jesus went with him. We can't make that assumption right now in the text. What we do know is that Jesus went. Why he went has not been given to us yet. Okay? But Jesus went with them. So they're walking, they're traveling to the man's house. They were already in Capernaum, but they went to a house in Capernaum not far away. And when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man sent under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. To another, come, and he comes. To my servant, do this, and he does it. Okay, we'll stop right there. So Jesus went with them. We're not sure what exactly we're to suppose from this. But we could ask, was Jesus persuaded and impressed at this guy's political, social, financial affiliations and influence? Jesus said, well, I don't know. There's a guy asking me to heal somebody. And if you got enough power and authority and influence, you have enough social standing, if you've contributed enough to the building projects around here, if you've done enough of that stuff, let's see if you're worthy or not. Does that sound like Jesus? I don't think so. Did Jesus want to be sure and associate himself with someone of high standing in the community? There's this guy who's of high influence, and Jesus said, I hear what you're saying. This guy obviously has sway in our community, and a lot of people like him for that. So, all right. I guess to keep up what's expected of me, I will go because everybody else says I should go and like him, so I'll go. Does that sound like Jesus? Or did Jesus want to be sure and appease the requests of the influential religious community? You see, the Jews came to him, the elders of the Jews came to him and said, he is worthy. I don't care what you have to say. He is worthy for you to do this for him. We have appraised him ourselves, and he is found worthy. And we're arguing our case to you. You will go and do this for him because he is worthy. And so Jesus said, well, I don't want to be at odds with the religious community. I don't want to be at odds with those people who have influence over social life for the Jews. So, to make sure that everything stays happy and unified, I'll do what you're asking me to do. Does that sound like Jesus? I don't think so either. What else does the story tell us? When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying, Lord, don't trouble yourself. I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore, I did not presume to come to you. It's right here where we start to get some insight into this man's heart. Do you see it too? Now, we might ask, did the elders of the Jews misinterpret the centurion? Because he went to the elders of the Jews, the centurion did, remember? To send Jesus. But then when they sent Jesus, he said, no. I didn't presume to come to you, and I don't expect you to come under my roof. Just stay. No, I'm not worthy. But they said he was worthy. Was there some miscommunication? Was there a difference in how the people appraised the centurion versus how he appraised himself? Do you see it? They said, he's worthy for you to go and do this because of his prominence in our society, in our culture here. A man who gives money and has standing in the community. He has prestige. He has prominence. But instead, when he thinks of himself, that's not how this guy thinks about himself. However, he thought enough of himself to where he could go to the elders of the Jews immediately and talk to them and tell them to do something. Right? Just think about it as a city, okay? And you have enough social standing in the city to where you can go into whatever council meeting you want to go to and tell the council of the city what they're going to do. But you're not a council member, okay? But you have so much influence that they actually hear you. Do you know that that does work like that? Yes? Okay. So it worked like that then, and it works like that today. All right? If you have standing, if you have money, if you have a certain position of power and prominence, you're going to have sway. Some people grab hold of that sway and use it selfishly, sinfully. Other people are in that position and they use it in a good way. They use it to the glory of God. Okay? The position itself is not the problem. It's what people do with it. Right? So we get a different picture of this guy than they gave. So there's a couple of key words and phrases. Lord, he calls him Lord. Do you see that? Now, in this kind of society, it was a society of patronage, meaning there was a patron and you have clients. Okay? So the patron in the society would be the one who gives help, who gives privileges, right? You need something, come to me. I'm your patron. I give you things, and in return, what do you give me? How did that system work? You give loyalty. That's what you give in return. Okay? That's how that worked. You have a patron, and in that situation, the patron is above you, and you can only come with requests. Okay? And in return for giving to receiving your request, then you give loyalty back to that person for that. And that's how that relationship works. In this situation, the man does not view himself above Jesus. By calling him Lord, by acknowledging that he's not worthy for Jesus to come under his own roof, by saying, I did not even presume to come to you, as if I'm somebody. I'm not. He rightly acknowledges that his earthly conditions and circumstances gain him no standing before the Lord. He realizes that he's not in a position to demand, to require, to expect Jesus to do his bidding. He says, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man sent under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, another, come, and he comes. To my servant, do this, and he does it. So he's saying, listen, I am someone in authority. You're right. But I know what it is to have people over me as well. And you certainly are that to me. But if you would simply just say the word, my servant would be healed. Don't trouble yourself. You are above me. Don't bother yourself with me and my little circumstances. Just say it, and all will be good. If you just say the words, my servant will be healed, you don't need to come. He's essentially saying, if I could reword it, he's saying, you're an important person. You have many important things to do. And I believe you have the power and authority to do this for me, but I'm in no place to make demands of you or your time. But if you just say the word, I know that my servant will be healed. So then, what do we receive in verses 9 and 10? Well, Jesus now gives his appraisal. And we're very interested in that, right? All right, let's see what Jesus has to say. Verses 9 and 10. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him. And turning to the crowd that followed him. Ah, there it is. Do you see it? We didn't know they were there until right now. And turning to the crowd that followed him, it said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. End of the story. We can see, it's pretty clear, I hope you see, the healing is not the point of this story. Do you see that too? It's almost like telling us that the healing occurred is an afterthought. And then they went home and he was well. All the other emphasis falls where? Not on the healing, but on the man. The man is the point of the story. The centurion himself is the point of the story. What about him? That he was really wealthy and influential and he gave money. And that when people are like that, you need to do whatever you can for them, and that's how it works. Thank goodness that's not the point of the story. What is the point of the story? It says, when Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him. That's incredible. Can you imagine Jesus marveling at anything you have ever done or said? You did that and Jesus went, wow. But let me tell you something. This guy did. This guy did something that Jesus stood back and said, yes. Incredible. Amazing. Now this word marveled 3 times in Luke. People were marveling at strange events that occurred. 9 times in Luke, people were marveling at Jesus. But this is the only occasion where Jesus marvels at anything. Is that significant? I think so. To marvel is to be extraordinarily impressed or disturbed, depending on the context. It has both positive and negative connotations. Context determines meaning. Is it positive or negative here? And Jesus was disturbed? No, I don't think so, right? He was astonished. You marveled at the man. But we don't know. Do we know why yet? Do we know why he marveled at the man? Well, it's his faith, of course, right? I think it's also worthy of note that in all the gospel accounts, in all the New Testament, in all the descriptions and sayings of Jesus, Jesus only ever marveled twice. One was negative, one was positive. The only other time Jesus marveled at something is the unbelief in Nazareth. And he marveled at their unbelief. Positive or negative? Negative. He couldn't believe their lack of faith. Unbelievable. I'm astonished at your lack of faith. And the only positive situation recorded both here and in Matthew 8:10, same story. Jesus marveled at the faith of the centurion. What caused Jesus to have this positive astonishment? Answer, one word, faith. And he says, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. Where do we see the faith, by the way? Where do we see faith in this story? The centurion believes that Jesus does not need to be present to heal his servant. Jesus simply needs to say the word and his servant will be healed. He believes in Jesus' power and authority to do what he says. If you simply say it, it will be done. You don't need to come, don't need to bother yourself, you don't need to come touch him, you don't need to lay your hands on him, you don't need to work up any kind of medicine or salve, or you need to do nothing but say it, because there's power when you speak. And I believe it to be true. Faith. And that kind of faith made Jesus say, wow, incredible. Not even in Israel have I seen faith like this. Some application as we think through this. A question for you. It's one big question, two parts to it. What is it we're most concerned with when it comes to our appraisal of both ourselves and others, and what is it that might cause us to marvel at someone? I think these are questions of direct application of the text, because why is Luke even conveying this story to us? Why did Luke find it necessary to say that story's making it in? You better believe I'm telling that one. Right? Are there a lot of stories that we don't have? Yes. But we have this one. And it serves a purpose, doesn't it? It's not meaningless. It has meaning, has purpose. What is the point? Is the point Jesus heals people? No, we already know that, right? That's already been laid on pretty thick. We know Jesus heals. What's the point here? Who is worthy for Jesus to perform miracles on? Well, the elders of the Jews said, well, I mean, if a guy's got money and he likes God's people and he gives it to them and he does stuff for them, and I mean, he's got a pretty good heart. I mean, that earns his place, right? No. And the man himself even acknowledged, nothing I have done has made me worthy of this, but here I am. And Jesus says, not even in Israel have I seen faith like this. And then on that basis, he goes, the friends go back, and what do they notice when they go back? He's been healed. On the basis of what? It's pretty clear from the story, is on the basis of the man's faith. What is it that makes a person worthy? What is it that when we look at a person and we say, wow, now that's somebody? Is it their influence? Is it the type of job they have? Is it how much money they have? Is it the kind of education they have? You know that you and I both are in the business of appraising people. You know that we do that. Everyone is in agreement with me, yes? I mean, that's not a secret. We do the work of appraisal of people, whether righteously or sinfully. Maybe you're doing it right now. We evaluate people. We make assessments of people. The question here today, very obviously present in our text, is what is the great basis of our appraisal of mankind? There's only one thing that we should stand in awe of: a person's faith. Now, many times, just like with this man, that faith has outworkings, right? But it's not the things that we're amazed by, because people can do things. People can give money, and they can do this, and they can do that. And we say, wow, I'm amazed. I marvel at how much money you just gave. No. but I marvel at the faith that you have. That's incredible. Do you see the difference? I hope you see the difference. A couple of passages here as we're just thinking how we might apply this to us personally. Romans 2, 6 through 11. It says, He will render to each one according to his works. To those who by patience and well-doing seek for glory, honor, and immortality, He will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, there will be wrath and fury, and there will be tribulation and distress for every human being who does evil, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. But glory and honor and peace for everyone who does good, the Jew first and also the Greek. For, here's the reason why, God shows no partiality. What does that word partiality mean? It's an exciting word in Greek. You're probably uninterested about it, but it's a combination of two words. Now, the meaning of a Greek word is not always the combination of its two external components or parts, but it helps in this situation, okay? Like the classic example for is like a butterfly is, put those two things together, it doesn't mean butterfly, okay? Butter and fly is not what a butterfly is, okay? So like it's the same thing in Greek with compound words. It's just because you can add the two words together doesn't mean that is its meaning. Does that make sense? But in this situation, it does help. It comes from two words. First word is prosopon, face. And then the second word, lambano, which means to grasp or to take hold of. So it literally, if we're just saying it means it's two components there, it means to grab hold of the face. Right? Not in like a combative way. It means what I see is what I grab hold of. External appraisal. And I give favor based on what I see. That's partiality. Right? I see what I see externally. I'm grabbing hold of the face. That is, whatever's presented to me. I grab hold of that, these external realities, and I show favor based on what I see. So if what I see externally I don't like, or I'm not pleased with, or our society doesn't like, no favor. If I appraise you externally and I grab hold of your face in that way, and I am pleased with you because power and money, oh, those are good things. I'm going to have favor on you because maybe then in return I'll be associated with you and I'll have power and money too by association. It is to play favorites. It is favoritism. It is partiality. God does not work like that. With God, there is no partiality. Are you thankful for that? I am very thankful for that. I would not have won in that situation. God would not have looked down on me and said, man, you are so smart, and you're so good looking, and you're so talented. Without you, I just can't imagine this kingdom. And so, yes, you are mine. It works absolutely in no way like that. God's not impressed by those things. He's the maker of those things. He is the distributor of those things. You understand? You were made just how God intended to make you. And He does not show partiality based on your standing in the society or how much money you have or how much education you have or whatever it may be. That is not what God sees. How do I know that? Well, a couple of places. 1 Samuel 16:7, the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or the height of his stature, because I've rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on, you know it, the heart. Is that a general truth about how God sees? Yes. For a man, he looks at outward appearance. He grabs hold of the face. Partiality. Because we're superficial. We tend towards superficiality. Right? For selfish gain. God does not. He is not superficial, and He needs no one to grab hold of so that he might be seen as better than he is. God doesn't work like that. What does that mean for us? Well, a place I want to take you is James 2, 1 through 5, and I think we'll end there today. While you're turning there, James 2, 1 through 5, let me just also read Psalm 147, verses 10 and 11. It says, his delight, that is the delight of the Lord, is not in the strength of the horse, nor is his pleasure in the legs of a man. But the Lord takes pleasure in those who fear him and who hope in his steadfast love. Please understand the full picture of what's being said, right? When it says God does not delight in the strength of the horse, nor is his pleasure in the legs of a man, what does that mean, right? What's the extended meaning of that? Anything you can produce in your own might. That's not what God's interested in. He's not interested in your power or your authority or the amount of money in your bank account. What you look like. That's not what he's interested in. You can't impress him with those things. We try. We're impressed by those things. Surely God is too. Oh, no, that's not true. God's delight is not in the strength of a horse, nor is his pleasure in the legs of a man, but the Lord takes pleasure in this, those who fear him and who hope in his steadfast love. And what does that take? Faith, that's right, faith. All right, are you there? James 2, 1 through 5, and we'll take this with us. My brothers, see if you can make the connection, okay? My brothers, show no partiality as you hold to the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. So it's interesting right there. He's saying now there is someone to elevate, but it's not people. It's him. He's the Lord of glory. Don't forget that. And we're all far, far beneath him. For if a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothing also comes in. Now, we can imagine that scenario, yes? We're all here, finely dressed, smelling good, looking good. Someone comes in who is not like that at all. And you're saying, well, I want to meet people. I want to be friendly with people. I want to have fellowship with people, right? And you appraise everyone, and you approach the people that match your appraisal, and they say, these people are acceptable to me. I can approach those people. I want to have friendship with those people. I want to have fellowship with them. Ooh, what's he all about? You understand? And you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing, and you say, you sit here in a good place, while you say to the poor man, can you stand over there? Sit down at my feet. Have you not then made distinctions among yourselves, and you've become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he has promised to those who love him? So do you not see that James is also saying, do you not see what's valuable? Faith. And it has nothing to do with these external distinctions. And Jesus shows us how incredible faith can be. Can it come from someone with power and influence and money? Can it come from them? Oh, absolutely, yes. Such as the centurion. But without his faith, what does he have? He simply has power and money and authority, and what is that going to do on the day of judgment? Let's pray.